Imagine the world as you know it. Bustling streets, the chatter of friends, the warmth of hearth and home. Now, erase it. Erase every sound, every scent, every comfort. Replace it with ice as far as the eye can see. A sky that never ends. A silence so deep it crushes the lungs. And you, a man exiled, condemned, cast away, alone. His name was Kirill Ivanov. Not a criminal, not a rebel, just a man who spoke truths someone powerful didn't want heard. Welcome to Phantom Archived, the channel where forgotten truths, buried secrets, and the darkest survival stories are pulled from the shadows. Subscribe and let's dive to the story. One cold November night in 1915, a knock echoed on his door. Boots, orders, chains. A quick trial in a city he'd never seen before. A sentence from a judge he'd never met. Exile to the north. They shipped him hundreds of miles beyond the rail lines, to where Russia ends and wilderness begins. They left him stranded, one small bag of belongings, a thin coat, a bread ration, and a sentence to vanish. But the Siberian taiga doesn't care about injustice. It only knows two things: hunger and death. He trudged into a blizzard. Snow swallowed his tracks within minutes. The wind whispered threats, bone-breaking cold, frostbite, the howl of wolves. He found nothing but dead trees and frozen bogs. No cabin, no shelter, no chance. By the time darkness fell, though in winter darkness never really lifts, his fingers were numb. He made a fire anyway. Two broken branches struck together, swearing sparks. The flame trembled, small and desperate in the Arctic gloom. He wrapped himself in old cloth from his bag and watched the fire die. Above him, stars mocked. Below him, ice ground against his bones. He thought, maybe this is the end. Maybe this is what they meant by exile. But dawn came. Not with warmth, only gray light and sharper cold. And something inside him snapped. I will not die here. He scavenged. Roots, bark, moss, snow that burned his lips raw. He fashioned a crude shelter against a clump of pines. Broken logs, branches, moss insulation. It leaked, it stank, but it shielded him from the wind. He sharpened stone shards into crude knives. He sharpened survival into his mindset. The first animal he caught? A hungry hare, frozen to death in the cold. Its corpse was a monument, not of defeat, but of survival. He boiled the meat over a scrap fire of pine bark. It tasted of ash and cold. He ate it. He survived the first week, then the first month, then the first winter. Winter in Siberia is not a season. It is a war. Wind cuts skin. Snow buries bones. Howls surround your mind. He learned to listen for cracks in the ice before stepping. He learned to track the sun angle just enough to know which way south lay. He learned to hide every fiery breath from wolves. He kept walking, not toward hope, but away from death. Memories, life before ice. At night, he closed his eyes and saw it. His small home, a wooden door, a woman's laughter, a child's cry. He felt warmth. He remembered bread. He remembered love. He clung to those memories, not as nostalgia, but as fuel. A fire inside colder than Siberia's icy grip. He promised himself, if I survive, I'll go back. I'll clear my name. I'll hug them again. But winter dragged on. Snow fell in endless sheets. The forest turned silent, dead. He stopped seeing animals. He stopped hearing birds. He stopped feeling alive. Sleep stole his nights. Stars haunted his dreams. And every morning he woke, because dying was easier than living. But too easy meant losing everything. Wolves, Not wild hares now, but prowlers, hungry, territorial, merciless. One night, he heard a twig snap behind his shelter, fur blacker than shadow, eyes glinting like ice knives. He froze. He held his breath. He whispered a prayer to gods he didn't believe in. The creature circled, sniffing the wind. He held a knife made from stone and bark. No fire left, no hope. The wolf growled, a low, menacing sound. But it moved away, left him alive. He exhaled, then whispered to the empty forest, "Thank you for not ending it tonight." He knew then, nature is not his enemy. Despair is. Years blur into seasons. The shelter becomes better. Firewood stacked, tools sharpened. Hare meat, frozen fish, pine sap. Hard-earned meals that keep the body from freezing internally. He built a crude shrine, a scrap of leather from the bag, a locket with a faded portrait of his wife and child, inside a hollow tree. He feared wild eyes or wandering hunters would take everything, but he needed something to survive for. Then one afternoon, when the forest was too quiet, he found it. Footprints. Not his. Human. Fresh boots, not animal paws. Someone had walked here. Recently. His heart froze. Approach. Risk betrayal, violence, death. Hide. Remain a ghost. He followed the prints at night, under the cold moon. They led to an abandoned hunting camp, broken rifles, a coat snagged on a tree. No bodies, no signs of life. But there was food, canned meat, salt, brandy from some long-dead traveler. He stole what he could, leaving snowcloak footprints covering his tracks. Back in his shelter, he cracked open a tin, the first warm food in years. Tears froze on his cheeks, not from cold, from something worse, relief and fear. Because in that forest, tracks can belong to rescue or a trap. He didn't go back, not yet, because he realized something important. If he walked into civilization, new faces, remembered names, his demons would follow. Accusations, prison, shame. He would be hunted again. The final shadow before dawn. On the eve of the third winter since his exile, he hears something he hasn't heard in years. The crack of wood under weight. Snow shifting, air changing. He grips his stone knife tight, waits, listens. Silence. Then a whisper. A distant human whisper, not animal, not the wind. His breath freezes, his heart pounds. He raises a torch. Smoke curls in the cold air. Footsteps in the snow, heavy, cautious. He steps forward, torch in hand, knife in the other. A figure emerges, from shadow, from snow, from hell. The torchlight flickered like a dying heartbeat. The figure stepped closer, trembling, frostbitten, half buried in snow. Just a man on the edge of death. Kirill approached cautiously, gripping his knife. The stranger's lips were blue, his boots torn, his eyes swollen with frost. He whispered one word, barely alive. He hauled the man back to his shelter, fed him drops of warm broth, wrapped him in fur, rubbed the frostbitten skin until color returned. Somewhere in the long night, the man's eyes opened. He rasped. Kirill didn't answer, because he wasn't sure anymore. A ghost? A survivor? A man? Or a creature shaped by snow and silence? When dawn came, the stranger spoke again. "My name is Andre. I came here with a group of hunters. A storm hit. I got separated. He shivered, not from cold, from memory. Kirill listened quietly, stirring the fire. Humans. Nearby. Alive. Or dead. He had feared soldiers had come for him, but this was worse. If hunters were in these woods, they would search. They would track prints. They would choke the forest with noise. And noise brings predators, both animal and human. Over the next few days, Kirill taught Andrei how to survive, the way only a man shaped by frost could. How to cut ice without cracking it. How to use moss as insulation. How to walk so silently the wolves won't hear your breath. Andrei watched him, mesmerized, as if Kirill was a myth, a creature of the forest. But survival changes people. 3 days later, the forest changed. Birds stopped chirping. The wind died. Even the snow seemed to hold its breath. Kirill knew the silence. He had lived with it for years. A large pack. Hunting. Hungry. He grabbed his spear, sharpened by hand, hardened in fires. Then more shadows slithering between the trees. Kirill stood tall. A lone man against a pack of predators. He slammed his spear into the snow. The largest one, black-furred, scarred, stepped forward, the alpha. Kirill didn't blink, not once. Finally, the alpha snarled, then turned away. One by one, the pack vanished into the forest. Andrei emerged speechless. On the 6th morning, Andrei shook Kirill awake. "Footprints," he whispered, "human ones." Kirill's blood froze. 3 men, boot patterns, rifles dragged through snow. Not hunters, not wanderers. Andrei swallowed hard. Kirill stared at him. Andrei hesitated, then exhaled. "My group didn't just get lost. We found something. A military cache. Buried supplies. They wanted to take the weapons, sell them in the towns. I refused. They turned on me." Kirill blinked. So it wasn't fate that brought this stranger to his door. It was violence. Human violence. The same darkness that exiled him. "They will come here," Kirill said. "Yes." He looked around his shelter, his home, built with 3 winters of blood and will. He stared at the fire, at the locket in its hollow tree, at the memory of his daughter. He closed his eyes. "No more running," he whispered. They prepared. Kirill set traps, snares hidden under snow, branches rigged to swing, sharpened stakes buried in frost. Andrei loaded the few remaining shells in an old rifle. Snow fell in slow, silent flakes, like ash before a battle. When the men arrived, they laughed. "Look at this place." The first man stepped into a trap. A branch snapped upward, smashing into his jaw. He fell screaming. The second raised his rifle, just as Kirill lunged from behind a tree, silent as death. The spear struck home. Andrei fired at the third, a single shot that echoed through the forest. Then, silence. Only their ragged breaths swirling in frost. Kirill stood motionless, snow settling on his shoulder. With the danger gone, Andrei said the words Kirill never expected to hear. "We can leave. There's a nearby station, a telegraph line. Home." The word hit him like a blade. Home meant his wife, his daughter, his name, cleared or condemned. Home meant facing the world again. He looked at the trees he knew better than any man. He looked at the sky that had been both prison and freedom. He looked at his hands, scarred, hardened, changed. Andrei placed a hand on his shoulder. The journey was brutal. Snow so deep it swallowed their knees. Wind so sharp it clawed at their faces. But step by step, mile by mile, the forest thinned. At the final ridge, Kirill stopped. Behind him, 3 years of silence. Ahead, a world he feared. A world that had forgotten him. A world that might imprison him again. He wiped a frozen tear. "I'm coming home," he whispered. As they reached the telegraph outpost, snow whipping behind them, the operator stared in shock. 2 men, one gaunt, wild, unrecognizable. A ghost walking out of the Siberian deathland. Kirill took a long breath, and for the first time in 3 years, he spoke his full name out loud. The operator froze, then whispered, "But you're dead." Kirill looked at the swirling snow behind him. "No," he said softly. The end. A man exiled into the White Death. A forest that tried to kill him. Wolves that tested him. Men who hunted him. But he walked out alive. This is Phantom Archived.